and welcome to the Lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on GameSpot.com or twitch.tv/GameSpot if you're watching live. Special thanks to all y'all listening to this on your podcast machines. Make sure you rate, subscribe, do all that stuff. I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting here on the Lobby set this week of all weeks, the 20th anniversary of GameSpot.com, sitting across the table from two people who are way cleverer than me at this. Mr. Peter Brown, reviews editor.
Hi.
And you're the person you are cosplaying as, presumably, Kevin VanOrd, the previous reviews editor here at GameSpot.com. You were just passing by the office today?
I was actually, yeah. Well, I mean, I was literally out walking, and I sent a text to Peter saying, saying, hey, so I got a new job, but I'm going to be leaving at some point, like to a faraway place.
Leaving.
Yeah, leaving. And I wanted to make sure to, things are really busy and hectic, and I wanted to stop by and just make sure that I got a chance to see GameSpot peeps before I suddenly just disappeared from the continent. And Peter's like, hey, while you're here, why don't you do this thing? And so I did the thing, and then
can you do my job for me for like 2 hours?
Sure. And then Danny's like, hey, can you stick around for the lobby? And it's like, I got anything else to do.
Yeah, the minute you leave here, there's going to be someone else roping you into something else.
Which is fine. I love being back. This is actually my first time since you've changed floors.
Right.
I've seen y'all, but I haven't been in the building.
Yeah,
since you moved.
July of last year.
Yeah, July of last year.
So, I guess it's perfect you're here because we wanted to have a section about GameSpot's 20th birthday, and you've been here longer than most of us here. I think maybe
I was
Chris
here 9 years.
You out a little
almost
bit?
9 years.
9 years, all right. So before we sort of get to the past, I want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing. What have you been doing since we've seen you last? Because you've got a whole new adventure coming up in the next couple of months.
But I already had adventures before that, yeah. So when I left GameSpot, I went to Tryon Worlds. I was first working there on a game called Devilian, which I hope everybody plays. But we localized Devilian. We did not develop Devilian. We localized Devilian at Tryon, and so most of my job was spent writing, lots and lots of words.
Right.
And at that point, when that sort of finished, when that part of the localization finished, I moved over to the Atlas Reactor team as a designer, and so I did a lot of stuff on Atlas Reactor, which is awesome, and you should all play it when it's widely available. And hopefully, the people that played the free Steam weekend. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be pimping this.
No, shut away. I mean, presumably we're not paying you for coming on the Lobby, so
no, I'm not being paid for being here. Are you kidding? So I did that, and then since then I've been working with an indie team, Cleaversoft. And we are making a platformer with dragons called Earth Knight, which is also really great. But I have nothing more that I can really share about that since we don't have a release date. We don't have it's a Sony exclusive. I can say that much because we already know that it's a PS4 Vita game.
And what are you doing on that one?
I'm a designer.
Design. So how does that? Because I know obviously you were like a prolific writer here.
Yeah.
Like Peter can attest to the fact that when you're in your work position, you spend a lot of the time smashing on keyboards. So presumably it was like, oh, that's a good fit. You're going somewhere else to write about games. How did the shift into design happen, and what element of design are you working on? Because I'm completely ignorant of how this stuff works.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into design, and so I'll give you an example on Atlas Reactor. When I was with Tryon working on Atlas Reactors, that involved level design. So if you like the second map, I designed the second map. So that was great on Atlas Reactor. But I also did things like writing character scripts and voiceover sessions and doing things dealing with the progression scheme, things dealing with monetization that was apparently all thrown out the window since the game went to pay to play rather than free to play, and things like that. So that's sort of a jack of all trades.
Right.
On Atlas Reactor, Devilian was basically writing. For Cleaversoft, most of what I'm doing is also level design, which is a little bit different. It's a 2D game, a 2D platformer. So I spend a lot of days doing things like what some people do with like Super Mario Maker, is that I'm just basically taking all of our assets and tools and trying to keep them consistently fresh and interesting, and doing new things with the platforming is sort of what I'm doing right now.
After 9 years of writing about games, what's it like 9 months out of it doing all this crazy stuff?
Well, I mean, I miss you guys, but luckily I've had the chance to do some stuff here and there, and I'm even working on some stuff for Peter now. Sort of maybe my final hurrah. I don't know. Like I thought Journey would be the Journey on PS4 would be the last thing I ever wrote for GameSpot, and that got proven wrong real fast.
What did you follow that up with? What was the?
So a Bombshell was my first. My first review after that, and as you probably know, I disliked Bombshell with a great passion.
Yes.
So, but then I've gotten then to play I got to review Hyper Light Drifter, so I went straight from a 2 to a 9. Well, there was something in between. I forget what it was.
I never know, man.
Maybe there was something where it wasn't something in between. I don't know. But working on Witcher 3 Blood and Wine for you guys, as well as the Odin Sphere HD.
You reviewed Witcher 3 as well, right?
I did review the original Witcher 3. It was my personal game of the year last year.
You were just handing out 10 out of 10s before you left.
Yeah, you know me. I mean, in the end, I guess I gave out 3 while I was at GameSpot.
Metal Gear Solid 4
Metal Gear
was
Solid
the other
4,
one?
Witcher
Wow.
3, and Journey on PS4, which in my mind is probably one of the most perfect games. I mean, if you think of a 10 as perfect, which I don't, but if you do think of a 10 as perfect, I think that's one of the most deserving games I can think of to be given a 10.
Our game of the year in 2012, and also Mary's favorite game of the past 20 years, as in one of our many features we put together this week on GameSpot, celebrating 20 years of the website. 20 years, a long time. We'll talk about what's coming up on your next adventure in a little bit, but let's get a little bit wide-eyed nostalgic a little bit here. Peter, when did you join GameSpot? Because for me, you've been here like forever. You're like part of the
As a
furniture.
staff member, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. When did you first start writing about?
Well, for GameSpot, that was October 2011, maybe November. I was working as a cook in Texas, trying to get freelance writing as much as possible, and I got a job opened up for a job writing strategy guides at GameSpot. I lied about my address. I reached into my well of references, which was Curtis Said, who used to work here, who I had worked with at oneup.com back in the day, and spent all my money flying out here, and have since learned that I probably didn't have to lie about living in California. But
Did you say like number 10, 2nd Street, San Francisco?
I had a friend who was like, okay, man, yeah, you can use my address. But I mean, bottom line was I had lived here before Texas, and I could have come back. So I was well prepared for the journey, but not prepared for, I think, how big of an impact GameSpot has had on my life.
Right.
I worked at a place called oneup.com, which I'm sure a lot of people remember. And
just down the street here.
Yeah, literally like 2 blocks away. And that was a really special time for me, but nothing has really left its mark like GameSpot has on me. And people try, they talk about a work-life balance, and even like my close friends try to, persuade me to maybe work less. But I think they don't understand that like this is kind of like it's threaded into me now. Like GameSpot is my life, for better. I don't want to say for worse. I mean, sometimes it's a job, and jobs are stressful, but GameSpot has been a positive force in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel like you've sort of got a lot of responsibility when you get your ticket on the plane. Kevin, you came from a sort of a similar place to me, but long before me. In fact, when you got hired, it made me feel a lot, sort of hopeful for my chances. You came from the community.
I did. I was a moderator for years on the GameSpot forums. And at some point I started just writing I was always writing reader reviews and things like that too, but I was a moderator on the forums for a while, and then I started writing for GameSpy, another place you might have heard about, along with OneUp. But I wasn't employed by GameSpy, but I freelanced for GameSpy in addition to doing writing for a site that now doesn't exist in the form that it used to. For free, just for the fun of it. And I got a call out of the blue from Jody Robinson, who was in community at the time, and there was this position for a tournament coordinator. And I was the first person they thought of. So it's not like I had applied for a position. I just got a call. And they said, hey, why don't you come out and interview for this position? And I was like, okay. And so the company put me on a plane and brought me from where I was living at the time. I was living in Maryland and working in Virginia, and they flew me out for a job interview that didn't feel like a job interview at all. It felt like GameSpot trying to sell itself to me, which was the strangest thing. So I said, okay, I'll completely change my life, and I'll move to California. And I left life behind. And so that's what I did. And then 9 years later, I was still doing it. And, I loved it. I mean, like Peter said, it's a job. It's not as, but it's weird when sort of life and leisure intertwine, like work and leisure intertwine in the way that they can do in the games industry. But it was time, sometimes you just have all this creativity and you realize it's time to use it in a new way.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I did. It wasn't because I wanted to escape GameSpot or anything.
I mean, 9 years
it was just
is
time to, I wanted to do new things,
Hmm.
but I wanted them to be with games because I love games so much. And I wanted to put my money where my mouth was and in a way and say, hey, I can write about them, but let's see what happens when I make them now.
I mean, I feel like jumping into the sort of, into the unknown is something that if you were to ask, there's only three of us here, if you were to ask anyone who's outside, working on production or out on the floor, or even all the people who've left, in the past coming years, that's like sort of the ubiquitous tale is like most of the people who work for this site. And even kind of when I think about IGN down the road, it tends to be people who have traveled far and sort of left everything and left all their family and people they knew before for like a brand new life. And I mean, it never kind of feels like you had any other choice to do it, because trying to break into this industry is like such a difficult, like so much of it involves time and place.
Even
and
after
fortune.
you get in, man.
Yeah.
You take an opportunity where you can. There's no, when it comes up, you do it because you love it and because there's no guarantee that anything else is going to come up. And that happens on both sides of things. I mean, certainly in game development,
right.
My time at Tryon was cut short for, by just the kinds of things that happen in the business of making games and the business of reporting on games. It's just that cycle. And so you take what you can when you can get it, if it's the right thing. I mean, there are certain things that I'm not going to do, but when these opportunities came up, it's like, yeah, you got to do it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be saying for the rest of the time, what would have happened if I hadn't? If only I had done it, I wonder what life would be. Well, now I get to know, and as it turns out, it's pretty great.
We got a bunch of lovely comments in here. Team Toaster saying Kevin's Assassin's Creed 1 review was the thing that made me follow GameSpot back in 2007.
Wow, nobody ever said that about that review. That was one of my. So there's a long history, of course, of reviewers getting hatred from whatever. Who knew? But I mean, the earliest at GameSpot that really started happening was with the Command and Conquer 3 review, which
really?
because it wasn't that long after Supreme Commander had come out,
Right.
And I scored Command and Conquer 3 higher than Jason Ocampo had scored
Supreme Commander 2?
Supreme Commander 1.
All right.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the first time I ever had people kind of whining at me for something. But Assassin's Creed is also another interesting one because, of course, I reviewed both that and the original Mass Effect, and I actually gave Assassin's Creed a higher score than I did the original Mass Effect. And that haunted me for quite a while. Obviously, I stand by that. And I still stand by Assassin's Creed 1 as still the Assassin's Creediest of Assassin's Creed, in the sense that it's the game when you're most like an assassin. So in that series, so yeah, I totally still love Assassin's Creed 1 to this day.
When you think about the sort of, I guess, before you worked here, what can you remember any like reviewers or shows or like any things you ever sort of wrote or watched, read or watched on GameSpot before that made you interested to work on the site?
GameSpot was always kind of present as I like trolled the internet looking for things that magazines didn't provide to me,
right?
Like back during the days of dial-up.
Screenshots.
Yeah. But I think different from you guys, I wasn't really like a hardcore fan of the site when I showed up here. For whatever reason, I don't know. It's not like I didn't like the content, but I'm so focused, I think, on, at least in the past anyway, it's different now, but in the past I was so focused on like hyper like Japanese console games and stuff like that. And GameSpot always had it seemed to have the PC audience more in mind, the sort of more mature games. And that was all well and good, but it wasn't what I was looking for. But then when I got here, I was just like blown away by the character of everyone on the team, their skill, and how they made me think about games differently. I mean, I thought I knew things about games then, but it's incredible the amount I've learned since I began here. Yeah.
Was it you that sent me an email? Somebody sent me an email not so long ago about reviews and things on the site that I thought were interesting from the last 20 years because of course the anniversary was coming up. And
it might have been Rob.
And maybe it was Rob. And I got and it was interesting. Like once I started going through all the things that made me love GameSpot before I'd even come here, I was really surprised. Like not surprised, I guess, but I was just like, oh my God, I can't forget about this. But I also can't forget about this. And for me, Greg Kasavin was always, of course, the big gun. When it came to sort of who I looked up to at GameSpot, because it was thoughtful, but it was also funny and nerdy and just sort of, I felt a connection with Greg in terms of what we liked and things like that. And, you know, maybe, and I think it was things like Neverwinter Nights, his review of that. There was Andrew Park's hysterical Gods and Generals video review, which is still my favorite video review that exists. From GameSpot. I mean, everybody looks to big rigs, and Alex review is a classic, but I really do think Andrew Park's Gods and Generals review is, video review, you know, is kind of stands on its own. But I mean, pretty much anything Greg did. But there's also a review that I don't think anybody even knows on the site that was one of the biggest for me, and that's Ryan Davis's Project Snowblind review. Right. That was, I mean, notwithstanding the fact that I had a huge crush on Ryan Davis for the longest time, there was just, you know, that review was also one of my, and still is one of my favorites on GameSpot. And I don't think anybody even really knows that review. It almost seems like a lot of great words spent on a game that nobody thinks about anymore. But there's so much, I mean, all those, it was the people that I loved, and they seemed to be writing to tastes that I had. That was the reason, number one, why I wanted to be here. I never actually thought, you know, you think, you know, I'm thinking in 2002, well, wouldn't it be neat if I worked at GameSpot? You don't think that 4 years later that thing is actually going to be happening.
Yeah. Do you remember like 3 or 4 years ago, you cracked some joke to me in the hallway about me having your job one day? I thought that was the most absurd notion.
No, I don't remember that.
I mean, you probably wouldn't, but at the time I was like, that's crazy.
But you know, I said that to everybody. You know, so it was probably a day where it's like, please, will somebody take this job? No, but I don't know. I forget what we're talking about. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overwhelm the conversation.
No worries. No, I mean that like I remember being back home and watching On the Spot in Ireland like 7 years ago, and to think that like so much of your life gets impacted by, you know, joining a place like this, it's really crazy. We're very, very lucky. Speaking of your admiration for Greg Kasavin, you have had a similar sort of post review
in a sense,
journalist life. Let's talk a bit about what you're doing next, because that's a bit that's a bit of a jump.
It is a bit of a jump. So it's been a little tough to make happen because, well, I mean, you'll see why in a second. So I'm joining Larian Studios, the people that make Divinity: Original Sin, the entire Divinity series. So if you know Divine Divinity and all games that came after that, then you know Larian Studios. So for me, it's a dream come true in a lot of ways. Number one is because Divinity: Original Sin was my game of the year that year.
Remember?
So you know, and it's like, again, it's like the other thing where it's like you don't actually think. You know, it's not like when that happened, it's like, oh, maybe someday I'll get to actually work with Larian Studios. You don't think that's going to happen, but it looks like in about, as soon as I can get all the rest of the paperwork in order.
Yeah, because they're not in Sacramento, are they, Kevin?
No, they're in Belgium. So in about a month, I'll be moving to Ghent, Belgium, which will be really awesome, and it's very frightening. But I'm really excited to see what comes next, and they've been really good to me. The whole company just seems really great, and they've been really patient seeing if the paperwork happens. It's really hard as it happens to get, you know, you got to get your work papers. You can't I can't just move to another country and say,
amen,
hello,
brother.
Which is it's how they say hello in Belgium actually, is hello.
No, you're not going to.
You can't just show up and decide you're going to work. There's a lot of government rigmarole, and somebody on Twitter said to me that, you know, this is just to prepare me for how much Europeans love red tape.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it looks like I'll be having some red tape.
Red tape
in the future
with your pommes frites.
Which is weird because now I'm moving to a land most well known for chocolate, waffles, and beer. Now that I'm vegetarian and
lost
not
all this
eating,
weight
and not eating things like that. So we'll see what happens. Although to be fair,
and beer.
And it's funny because I've never really been a drinker. So it's interesting though. Belgium, Ghent specifically has every Thursday is Vegetables Day,
really?
Vegetarian Day.
That's cool.
So everybody on Thursdays that lives in Ghent is inspired to eat their vegetables.
It's going to be all weird vegetables you're not used to, like Brussels sprouts and turnips, though.
Well, Brussels is there, so it makes sense that they would be into Brussels. Jeez, Danny, know your globe. But it'll be interesting, and you know, learning Flemish. Basically funny Dutch. So that'll be fun. So there's just a lot of stuff to get ready for. I'm really excited, and I'm also terrified. Utterly terrified. I think I get what everybody would get to. It's like a huge change. What if something happens? What if I'm not good at it? What if, what if I have a heart attack before I go and nothing ever, and I don't get to see it or get to do it or something like that? What if the plane crashes out of the sky and I don't get to have this amazing opportunity? It's like that's the way I think. That's just my brain, how weird my brain is. So, but yeah, that's kind of what's happening next. And, how long that lasts, I don't know. That's the fun thing about another terrifying thing about games making.
About life.
Is you don't know what happens. I mean, I had no idea how long I'd be at Tryon, but I was hoping it would be more than it was. And then again, this is a really financially strange industry. So you don't know what's going to happen, which is why I'm trying to connect myself also with as many side indie projects as I can, because they're on, you get to wear a lot of hats too with those kinds of things, and you get to be part of, you get to be a bigger part of the decision-making process and things like that with smaller projects. Not everybody gets to be like part of this core indie team that just go, not everybody gets to be Double Fine and just kind of move from one project to the next and just kind of be this awesome unit. There's a lot more flux typically. So anyway, that's what's coming next. So I'm excited. So Divinity Original Sin 2 10, yeah? Yeah.
Now,
Collusion?
you can say it to me. I'm not on the reviews team.
Yeah, Collusion?
If I only review it if it's a Formula One game. So
I'm kidding, of course. I mean, one incredible secret that nobody talks about in the games industry is that game developers know pretty much how good their game is before anybody else gets their hands on it. So, and typically, not the case every time, but typically, I mean, that's just the way it is. So, I hope you all like Atlas Reactor too. I already know how much you like Devilian. So.
I hope to like every game. I mean, isn't that what we all hope for?
Yeah. I mean, you want every game to be awesome.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. I want every game I make to be awesome.
We've had a bunch of really awesome ones this year already. And here's to some more.
This has been a fantastic year already, I think.
Good Doom and Uncharted and Overwatch today. Kevin, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Nice to have a lovely chat about the history of I guess the sort of the past, the present, and the future. I mean, that's what websites are, right? It's just a bunch of people who are contributing in the best way they can, and
contributing.
They leave, and next people come in, and the wheel keeps on spinning. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Peter Brown.
Hi.
We're gonna ask you to stick around because you got Fallout. Kevin, you don't know much about Fallout at all, do you? You never play Fallout.
Says the man who reviewed Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas.
Have you had a chance to play Fallout 4? Considering you're working so much.
I did not. I got very close, but I did not beat Fallout 4. But honestly, part of that has to do with the fact that I don't like Fallout 4.
Oh, really?
Too
much of a shooter? Or?
It's too much of a shooter. I felt like a lot of choice has been taken away from me, and I have lots of niggles. I can't stand the way the dialogue and conversation systems work in Fallout 4, for example. So I have a lot of problems with the Fallout 4. But honestly, I can go back and play New Vegas with mods anytime I want. And so I get that. I can still have the Fallout experience that I love, and that's go back and play Fallout 2, or I can play Wasteland 2, which is also fantastic. So lots of things to do. If one game doesn't meet your needs, there are thousands of others.
Yeah, there are a bunch of them. Mr. Handler, you want to come in here and relieve Mr. VanOrd? Are you heading out right now then?
I don't know. What do you want me to do?
I don't know. If you're still here in 30 minutes,
I'll hang
out
see you. and hang out with people outside.
All right, cool.
And I guess Rob can take my place for now. He's much better looking anyway.
The chat all saying lots of good lucks and thanks for popping in.
Thanks. Seriously, I guess before I get off, I'm sorry, Rob. I know you're prettier than I am, but sometimes age before beauty. And but seriously, as much as I want to be fair to everybody out there, because I mentioned something about reviewers get hate a little while ago, but I also want to make sure that it's without you I wouldn't get to do what I had gotten to do. And as much as it's going to be hard to like deal with kind of deluge of people that don't like you and say nasty things to you, I did it day in, day out because I loved it, and because I hoped that maybe somewhere out there I could help other people love it too in a different way, or to start to appreciate games in a new way, in a thoughtful way. And over the years, I got a chance to grow in that respect, because I was surrounded by writers that I admired and people that made me look at games in different ways than I had before. And I hope that I got the chance to do that for some people. And whether or not you liked what I had to say or not, I hope that whoever was out there knew that I did it with as much love and passion and certainly honesty, and it's easy to always, nowadays it's easy to just, journalists suck and, bias and so forth and so on. But, we do it because we love the games and because we really do have something to say and hope that what we have to say can have meaning for somebody. And hopefully in all of that, somebody out there, a few people out there found something in that.
You gave it to me, for sure.
I hope so.
You definitely did.
And that's all I really want in the end, is just for people to keep looking at games in new ways and to keep looking at that art form and saying, this is some of the things we've done and we've got a lot more awesome things to do.
Yeah, for sure. Here's to the future.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kev.
Rob,
all right, let's
come
get
and
Mr.
take my
Hammond
place,
here.
you pretty-faced man.
On that note, come on, Kevin, getting in here and making us all well up.
Right in front of the camera.
Don't worry about it. You've earned it. You can do what you want.
After that speech, absolutely.
Seriously, my first day. I'm sorry. So my first day on the set, I did shit like this all the time. So I'm just gonna do this. Like this is me walking around the spot set all the time. It's
Casting
like,
shot.
hey everybody, see my body, see my shadow.
Oh, that's awesome. You can do an intro and an exit. Nice work.
Heck yeah.